This is the 2017 TVS Apache RR 310. Now this bike was a huge deal for TVS because it was their flagship model when it was launched, and also it was made in partnership with BMW. So this bike obviously made a lot of waves when it was first launched. In fact, this bike is very dear to us because when me and Shivank have both bought this bike. Now, of course, there were some problems with this bike, and the TVS has gone back to the drawing board and met with customers and journalists like us to find out how they could improve it. Well, they have done some interesting changes.
And this is the 2020 TVS Apache RR 310. Now on the surface, it's just a BS6 upgrade, but TVS has added a lot more to it. So today we are going to test these two bikes back to back, and let's find out if TVS's claims are actually true.
So, of course, as you can see, initially there are a lot of cosmetic updates to the bikes, but they're more or less the same. But before we continue on, let me just ask Shivank a question. I know the reasons why I bought this bike, but Shivank, let me ask you, why did you buy this bike? Forget the deal you got from TVS, obviously, but why did you buy this bike? What was so good about this that made you want to purchase it?
I think the first thing that I loved about this motorcycle is the equipment. It has all top cycle parts. So it came across as a very good value for money. Of course, TVS gave us a good deal, but it was a really nice bike. And we used this bike as a long-termer for 12 months. So in that period, we started to love this motorcycle. Of course, there were a lot of problems. Like we said, we'll come to that later on. But I love this motorcycle because of its handling, because it's a great sports touring machine. So I really like this motorcycle's touring capabilities. And on top of that, it's a really great handler. It's a sports bike, it's a sports touring machine. So even if you go to the hills and everywhere where I like to travel. So for me, this was kind of a perfect motorcycle at that price point.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Shivank. But you know, as a journalist, when we first test ride these vehicles, we do have a lot of feedback for the manufacturers. But as an owner, when you live with the bike, you obviously get to experience it in a much different way. And we did realize there were still a lot of problems with this bike, even though it was such a nice motorcycle. Number one, of course, was the engine refinement. It wasn't the best. You know, the brakes had some issues. The throttle response wasn't the smoothest. And of course, you know, there are some other issues with the bike as well. The tires weren't the grippiest. But now, if you look at this bike now, compared to the new one, can you just tell us what are the new features on this and how the bike has become better from this model?
So first of all, of course, it's like there are some cosmetic changes. As you can see, this has a new dual tone color and there's no black available anymore. The old red color is still there. But apart from that, there's a lot more equipment. First of all, it gets ride-by-wire throttle, and there's a new full color display here, and it gets 4 riding modes. There are new tires. These are Michelin Road 5 tires, and I rode this bike at the track earlier in January, and I absolutely loved this motorcycle. So on the surface, these are the changes.
So I haven't had the opportunity to ride these bikes on the track because I'm not a track rider like Shivank. But as he mentioned though, you know, this is a great touring motorcycle, and the reason why I bought this bike is because it is the perfect bike for the Indian conditions within that price point. Now the KTM RC390, which is a competitor to this bike, is very uncomfortable for long distance touring, and it's a very aggressive motorcycle that's not comfortable for guys of my size or even riding in the city for that matter. This bike on the other hand is a lot more fun to ride in the city, more comfortable, and just easier to handle in general. But when it comes to engine performance, now this was not a BS6 model, the new one is a BS6 model. And from riding this bike for the last day or so that I've been riding it, I can definitely tell there are a lot more improvements in the engine. I don't know what they've done exactly, but for sure, the vibrations have gone down a lot. And I just absolutely love the new ride-by-wire on this new TVS Apache RR 310 because the acceleration is just so smooth and punchy right now. It's so instantaneous. I just love the way it picks up and goes off the line. The second thing, of course, is I love the riding modes. It's got urban, it's got rain, it's got sport and track. Of course, in urban and rain, you only get 25 brake horsepower, if I'm not wrong, and a lower torque output. But when you put it in sport and track, it goes back to 33 or 34 brake horsepower, and you get the full grunt from the engine. So depending on the situation you're in, you can always change that, which was sort of lacking in this. I wouldn't say it's a necessity, but it certainly does add a lot more to the bike in terms of its usefulness and its versatility. But overall, in terms of the riding posture and the riding comfort and riding it around the city, it's more or less exactly the same. The only benefits now with the new model is that it is less vibey. The tires also are a lot more grippy, as Shivank has mentioned. And I also have to say, I am a fan of the older design. Shivank can tell you guys more about the new design here, but I have to say, I'm a little old school, so I like the matte black finish. I think the decals are also much better on this. The badging, the way the R310 sticks out. It's just a much better old school look to this motorcycle.
So Jared says that he likes the matte finish. Of course, I also kind of liked it, but I feel the new finish, it looks quite edgy and it looks, it's a little louder, but I think the bike, the whole design comes out nicely. Of course, I'm not a fan of the dual tone shade. I think I loved the 2019 version, which was also a midlife upgrade to the motorcycle. So it came with a full gloss black paint. So that I really liked. I wish TVS had, retained that color scheme. But on the other hand, the quality and everything on this motorcycle is much better. I mean, I'm not saying the quality on that bike is any worse, but this motorcycle, it feels a lot more premium now. And most of that is down to the new LCD display, because you feel like you're riding a big bike. The display, the way it functions, it's very crisp. Of course, you have got these toggle switches around here, so you can navigate through the menu quite easily. And then the other thing is this screen here. So now you can see there are 4 Allen bolts here, so you can remove the screen and clean it, which wasn't the case with that bike. So as you can see on that motorcycle, there's a lot of dust around, settled around there, so you can't take it out, you can't clean it. And if you have an OCD like me, so it really troubles you. So I think this is a very nice touch, and this is based on customers' feedback, I can tell you that. Apart from that, there's a nice gloss black finish here. Jared says he doesn't like it, but I think it's much easier to clean it and it retains its shine. That one is fading now. So I think, again, this is a nice touch. Now coming to the engine performance, Jared has already covered most of it, but I'd like to add that I really like the throttle response on this motorcycle. If you ride it back to back, the old version and the new version, you can immediately make out the difference. There are no vibrations, the tank doesn't buzz. That motorcycle, everything buzzes, it feels, it sounds like as if it's broken. Performance wise, of course, there is hardly any difference, and this is a BS6 version, so initially you might feel some lag because of the regulations, and it's heavier by around 3 kilos, this motorcycle. So there is a marginal difference, but unless you're hitting the track or you're checking it in V-Box, you're not going to make the difference. But overall, I really like this motorcycle because it feels a lot more eager now. And with different riding modes, track and sport mode, you can feel the throttle, the fueling, everything is quite aggressive. It's tuned for aggression. So I really love this motorcycle for that. Now, one thing that still needs working, even in this new version, is the brakes. I felt the ABS is still over-intrusive, and the feel from the lever, it's not that great. The feedback under emergency braking, you don't feel that kind of confidence. Plus, the lever is really long, so I wish TVS could fit a shorter lever and there is more feedback from the brakes.
Yeah, I'll have to add to Shivank, of course, the riding and the engine response is phenomenal. So I think it's safe to give our verdict right now. It's unanimous. The new model is leaps and bounds better than the older one. I just wish that I'd waited and not bought the older model and would have stuck around and waited and got the new one. But for now, I'm still enjoying this bike. This is actually Shivank's motorcycle right here. It's a beautiful motorcycle. The new model certainly is a lot better even in real world conditions, besides the track where he rode it and fell in love with it. So yeah, any regrets of buying this bike, or are you happy with the old one still?
So I really like this motorcycle. I really love it, to be honest. But as I've maintained since the beginning, it is not a perfect motorcycle. It felt like a prototype. I mean, there was 98% of it was complete, but there was this last 2% missing, and that really bothered me. I mean, over the time, TVS has upgraded this motorcycle. I've also fitted a slipper clutch to this, but it never felt complete. And that's why when people would ask me if they want to buy this motorcycle, I'd probably say that, this is not the perfect motorcycle. So if you can live with the niggles, if you can live with the engine harshness and the brakes which don't feel as good, so of course you can buy it. But I never felt it's the perfect motorcycle. However, with the 2020 version, TVS has addressed all those issues. And I can happily say that if someone today comes to me and asks me for a suggestion, I can happily say that this is the best bike in the segment, and it is all the bike you'll ever need.
So, what about the price? I believe this is a bit more expensive than the older model, obviously. What is the price difference?
Yeah, so this is only the old motorcycle. I mean, not this one, but there was a 2019 upgrade in between. So that was 2,27,000 rupees. This is 2,40,000 rupees. So only 13,000 extra. And for that kind of money, you get a lot more equipment. The motorcycle feels much better. And of course, it's a BS6 version. So that means cleaner emissions as well.
So there you have it, guys. TVS has done a fantastic job with this update. And we've had a fantastic day with this motorcycle. And I think it's time that I go back to TVS and switch my old one and get the new one. So I hope you guys liked that video. If you have any questions or comments, please make sure to go ahead and leave them in the comment section below. And you could always visit us at www.autox.com.